Thank you for joining us for another Divine Masculine Roundtable. Thank you, brothers, for joining us and being on the call for the last one of the year. I missed you guys. And so, in light of everything that's going on, where we find ourselves at this day and time, the recording probably won't be up until after the 21st, but there's a lot that's said to be happening tomorrow. And there's a lot of different views on it. And I kind of don't wanted to, we just talked about this, Seth, and I wanted to open up the conversation on what we feel is happening, what's going on in the planet, how we personally can navigate this, and how we can make an impact by our own individual alignment. So who wants to kick off?
I'll start off. I love starting off. I think for me, there's three things happening. Obviously, planetarily, constellation-wise, this rock is hurling in the middle of the galaxy, and from what I understand, and it really is becoming to the galactic center where the galactic sun is going to be streaming incredible amount of light that only happens after 12,600 years. So that whole notion of dark to light is coming on the solstice. So that's number one. Number two, I'm sure all of you watching and all of you men have been feeling, as I have, the incredible energy surges that come in and go out and just leave. I don't know why this. In some instances, they left me completely debilitated, where I felt like my human body had to be shut down and powered back up again, if that makes sense. So, and what's happening, I think overall, is we're really going into the beginning of the golden age, the completion of the Mayan myth, and walking into the 1,000 years of peace and love. At least that's my impression of it, but I offer it to you guys.
That's a beautiful, beautiful impression. And absolutely, I want to just say thank you guys. I love you all so much, and it's so wonderful to be back. I haven't been here with you guys for a little bit. And I feel a lot of the reason why is because I've been feeling this very thing that we're talking about. Like, I noticed it actually, and Brandon and I were talking about this after the last roundtable we had. It just kind of, I went through a healing thing, me, Azariah, and Brandon, and from that point forward till now, I feel like I've just been going through this personal change that has just been constant, one thing after another. And as I was saying, it's easy to get wrapped up in what we think these things are and how they make us feel. And we get stuck in this, like, woe is me, even if we know better. We all still have that part of us, that human part that's like, oh, I can't believe this is happening to me, But then if we persevere, if we just trust and somehow tap into this part of us that doesn't know how we know, but it just knows, then we end up coming through that. And this resilience comes back. And like you said, with these constant expansions and contractions and expansion, contraction, you get powered up in a new way. And I've been experiencing that one after another. So I feel like that's a lot of it, is finding that willingness to, it's okay to feel everything, to get shut down by it, to cry, to feel grief, to feel anger, feel all that, but also know that that's just a precursor to something that's greater after it. And riding through the storm, eventually clear skies come out.
So what do you do when you feel those sine waves coming and you're going into a valley? Especially right now, like all your process that you've been going through from then until now, that you had to kind of step back. What are you doing in those valleys?
So for me, it has become, as we've talked about many times in this roundtable, I've taken this whole idea of heart-brain coherence to the glandular level, literally making sure that I'm sustaining these super high states of coherence, which is essentially the energy that's animating the being. I'm taking my human awareness, I'm surrendering it to the recognition that there's some intelligent force causing my heart to beat. I'm focusing on that, and I'm focusing on it to the degree that my attention becomes prioritized on it. And then from that place, I become aware of the rest of my body. You know, that's the core that I hold. And then I feel other places in my body where that energy could be useful or activating or freeing to the parts of myself that are resisting these expansions and contractions. And I do this constantly, all the time. And I mean, as brutal as things can be, I find myself loving it more and more and more, because I'm like, yeah, it sucks, but I wouldn't change it for anything, because it is exactly what it needs to be. And so it's that kind of attitude with that kind of commitment to the practice of this internal practice that gets me through it.
Beautiful. Yeah, I noticed too, like when you commit to the process, when you commit to the path, and you continue to do that, when you get to the other side, there's like this freedom, right? There's an expansion and a freedom. And there are people, you know, I've seen people who kind of shut that off. They separate themselves from that feeling. Oh, it's a planetary thing. Like for me, like there's different things that I do with it depending on where I'm at personally. I know if I am out of alignment, then the energetic impact of what's going around globally will definitely, it can knock me down, right? So I make it like imperative that I do my best to keep my center, to keep my ground, to keep my alignment, so that I can be what I need to be when these moments arise. And that's first and foremost. That's where that maintenance comes in. And then there's other times where I do the same thing with the planet that I do with another in a personal energy session. The same exact thing. When I'm tuning into them, I'm like, oh, what's this? And I feel it and look, okay, well, how can we make this different? And so I'm looking at it and I'm feeling the alchemy of that transition. And so when somebody's like, I've gotten psychically attacked, and it's the same thing. I follow it back to its source, and like I turn it, and it becomes a light. It becomes lit up by the consciousness of a creator. And then on the planet, it comes in, and there's times where I need to go deep into it. Sometimes I sing this shamanic singing that I do, and it transforms it through the song. Sometimes I'm doing like this kind of movement, like shamanic little dancing, and then I'm feeling it and I'm moving it, the energy at the same time, and I shift it that way. And sometimes it's just I'm driving, I'm feeling it, I'm like, oh, what's that? Okay, well, let's shift this. And I'm feeling myself go into it and move out from my heart into that space, and then seeing it seed everywhere around the planet that it's being called for, and then it's expanding, and then having it connect to the other consciousnesses that I am in resonance with, and seeing it expand from them. So we become this web of beauty and love and wisdom surrounding the planet. So I strengthen it that way, and I see that grow. And as I see that grow on the planet, I also feel it grow in my heart. So those are some of the things that I do to move through these things when it comes up. But there's also times where I let myself get smacked down somehow. I'm like, oh man, here I am again. Okay. Retreat time.
But I think those moments are just as important as anything else, because for me, it's surrendering to those moments and understanding, like you said, Brendan, is what's this all about? Because I didn't know if this was my stuff, if this was the collective stuff, if this is a universal stuff. Like the energies have been so intense that I just have to sit still with it and transmute if possible, right? And it's been certainly the last week and a half, it's been pretty dense. It's been really dense, actually, in some respects. So I've only started to feel buoyant in the last 2 or 3 days. And again, it's not quite there yet. You get a little buoyant and you come back down again. You go a little buoyant and then come back down again. But it's coming. It's coming online. I feel it.
It's tough to digest and segregate where the energy's for me. I have a tough time, and I feel I'm definitely guilty of just sometimes, I think, distracting myself with things, not wanting to feel through all the energies. And I think that's something for me to work into in 21, is just really feeling through and sitting still to align myself with what is this that I'm feeling, opposed to trying to just cover it up.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people, when they start asking the questions, are really surprised by the answers. Like, is this really my, oh man. Because I know I was. I'm like, oh, man, this is my ex. I'm like, what are you doing here?
Talk about it, man. Talk about it, Brendan.
Can I say something about that, gentlemen?
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's kind of an answer to Brandon's question. What do you do when the sine wave is low? And we're all kind of touching on it. I love what you said, Seth, and Zissis and Brandon, and even Terrence, your question, how do I know to feel the energies? What's mine? What's the collective, etc.? I like to do the process of, since I create my own reality, that's a basic given, it's a truth, then it doesn't matter where it comes from, it's all mine, I created it. And so when I do that, one of the values there is now I have ownership of that thing, whatever it is. Like we'll use Brandon's example of being under psychic attack. So I could spend time wondering, is this a collective thing? Is it my thing? Is it the X? But that, to me, I kind of set that aside, and I just know it's me. I created the psychic attack. I've got ownership, and now the beauty of having ownership is when you own it, now you can do something about it. When you do come to the conclusion that, for instance, it's the collective or it's the X, at that point you can't do anything about it because it's not yours. And so I like to own it no matter what it is. And to me, since we've been talking about manifestation and creation recently, to me what I do is I reverse engineer the manifestation of it. So since I created my own reality and I'm under psychic attack, then I look within like the Ho'oponopono and I do that process. And I also own that, well, if I created a psychic attack, then there must be something in me that's attacking psychically, a part of David that's attacking another part of David or someone else. And I investigate and I find that part of myself that's holding on to that. And usually I find, well, I'm under psychic attack because I'm using it as a protection, so I don't have to go out into the world and I don't have to become famous, or I don't have to have all these obligations, or I don't have to make all this money. And under psychic attack, I can be in victimhood, and that's a safer place for me to be, or whatever. Whatever it is, I investigate it, I own it, and then I shine my light and love on it, like you all are talking about, and then I forgive it and release it, the Ho'oponopono process. And I do that as many times as it takes so that it's no longer a part of who I am. And that's how I own the sine wave, and also then prepare to create a more harmonious, more joyful experience out of it. So I released that old darkness and brought in more light. And that's a process that works really well for me. So I just wanted to share.
David, I want to ask you just a follow-up. You said you would do this process, and when you said the Ho'oponopono, as many times as required. Can you bring a little bit more structure? What does that mean for you? Because that could be a little bit, amorphous as it could be. What does that mean exactly?
Yeah, that's a good question. And I think a lot of us have been doing this long enough that we know that there's an onion-like quality to getting down to the depths and the core of our issues. And so for me to think when I was 24 years old and I worked on some of my mother issues, at the time I thought, oh good, I completely took care of this. Now I can move on to the next thing. And then, no, wait a minute, at 29 and 35 and 43, it still kept happening. And it wasn't that I was doing something wrong. It was that I believe my higher self knew that it was exposing as much as it possibly could for me at that time, because those are the tools that I had available to me to deal with that level. And as I honed my tools and gathered more skills and more tools, then more of the issues kind of exposed themselves so that I could clean and clear those as well. So I do the best I can at being as thorough as I can, knowing that it's possible that I've just cleared all there is that's in my awareness right now. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, it certainly does. And it's that process of integration. When you've cleared that, there's a process of integrating that, and that takes however long it takes, right?
Exactly. Yeah. It's not an event. I know that for a fact. It is a process. And because I create my own reality and my world is around me, I can look at my world around me and I can, for instance, in Brandon's example of psychic attack, when the psychic attack has ended and in place of it is a lot of mutual respect and harmony and cooperation, then I look around and my outside world kind of supports me and shows me where it is I am right now. Now, on the other hand, if there's still a psychic attack and it's lowered its intensity by 50%, then I'll know, okay, I'm on the right track. I still got more to go. Does that answer your question? So that's what I mean by as long as possible, or as long as necessary until I'm clean and clear.
And that's so perfect, David. It's your external environment that is the feedback loop of where you are in the now moment.
Exactly.
Thank you for bringing that up. Oh, go ahead, Ez.
I'm going to second you, Brandon, and just thank you, David, for bringing this up. And also, I was going to say something before, and I feel like I must be on certainly the same wavelength as what David has shared, because what came to me is just this: investigation, ownership, and action, right? Mm-hmm. You're in this place now. You become aware that you're somewhere that you don't like. I'm recognizing that for me now at this point, I'm considering myself always in process. So that alleviates this, I've got to this place, awesome, oh, something happens, that's like an expectation. So I'm just willing to say I'm always in process. And there is an onion-like layer to all these things. So I'm not assuming that I'm moving from one step to the next step, or maybe it's not step to step, but like one unfoldment to the next unfoldment, if that works. And I just want to step back and look at what's unfolding before me. If I've created this, if I've created my forgetfulness, then I'm also powerful enough to create my remembering. So how will I navigate? How can I be creative in creating my remembering? Because I'm not doing it by myself. And so ownership is a big deal. I concur with you, my brother, in terms of saying, okay, all this is mine. All the racism is mine. All the poverty is mine. All the disrespect to the women is mine. But I'm going to recognize it in the little part of me that is part of the whole, and then what am I going to do about it? What action can I take? And it's very empowering, because then you just now decide the action and take it, and then you can kind of shoot, aim, as long as you have breath. So this is what I'm doing currently. Is like, I'm seeing things in the reality. I'm saying this is fully my reality, looking at the reality, and then asking, what do I want to work on? As opposed to sometimes when there's so much going on, we become paralyzed with the onslaught of all of it. So I try to minimize my paralysis, but also throw in some rest for a reset. So I think sometimes we go hard and it's time for a reset, and then you come back. Expansion and contraction.
I'm smiling.
Oh no, it's so powerful. Seth, go ahead, brother.
No, I was gonna say, like, just what you're saying, everything you're saying, everything that everybody said so far. It's like such good medicine. I feel like I can't smile enough just listening to all of it. I'm like trying to see how far up my smile can go.
Bring it all
because
the way
it's,
up, bro. Yeah.
I know, I'm like, my face can't smile enough how I actually feel. But
It's nice.
this is the beauty, is everything that we've been sharing tonight. Everybody has said it. Like, we are individually and together as a species all coming to this pivotal point where we are learning to take responsibility for everything, regardless if it appears to be ours or not, and become comfortable with that, become empowered with it, to become so confident within our ability to say, okay, I don't like what I'm seeing, but if it is an unresolved aspect of my own consciousness that I'm not conscious of, I'm going to keep moving forward like water eroding rock until those barriers wear away. And every one of you guys has been speaking to that and doing that so clearly since we last got together. That's why I'm like, I feel like I came home.
Welcome home, bro. It's good to be home. I miss you, brothers, too. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. I'll just say something to the Ho'oponopono, Jesus, because you asked about the process. It is a process of taking responsibility and recognizing that everything outside is part of you. All these living things are part of you. All of what you may think is non-living is actually alive, right? There's God imbued, source imbued in all of what we're seeing within this matrix, in this construct. So then recognizing that if all of this is a reflection into here of what you're seeing, then you can begin the process of reconciling with it. Ho'oponopono, making it, more right, so to say, by those four things of, recognizing this one and saying, and it doesn't matter the order. For instance, navigation with my partner, right? Well, I'm sorry for what I've ignored, what I've come to realize is going on within me that is creating this reality between the two of us. Then also asking for forgiveness within yourself. You can say it to your partner, but you're really saying it to all aspects of your partner within yourself. Will you please forgive me? Acknowledging that you will be forgiven in the sincerity of your request. So then, thank you. And then ending it or starting it with, in all of this, I love you. I love you, me, you, us. And then you could do those four. You can even just use one of them, just the thank you, the gratitude. I love you. It's very powerful. Obviously, it's transmutation, right? Please forgive me, because it's mostly us holding something against ourselves and then bringing that aspect of what we believe needs to be done for us to be forgiven into our reality. And thank you. Thank you for making this known to me. Thank you for showing up in my field of vision and awareness. Thank you for this opportunity, for the expansion or contraction of the progression of the totality. We're just me, right? And then things do change. If anything, you become more peaceful within or more whole. And then obviously your reality will change.
As for those that haven't experienced this magic, when you go through that process, how long does that take? That unburdening, let's say, or that relief, or that lightness, because I know that probably people are watching right now and they're questioning the process or questioning how 4 sentences like that can actually do anything because they seem so inconsequential.
The question most of us ask is how long does it take? But the end of that sentence is how long does it take for me to notice things have changed?
Right.
So, how willing are you to start to see what's changing? Because it's a process, right? A mile is a bunch of steps. I'm feeling funny about using linear talk, but like the process is happening. So how long will it take for you to actually look and see what's unfolding? After every soul session, every session that I do energetic healing or whatnot, the thing that I propose to the person is now be the observer. You put something out to the universe, be the observer. If you want to do one Ho'oponopono chain and then wait and see, then you got to look to see what's changed. Actively, right? And so things change the instant they change. And what's changing? You know, it's like, what are you looking to change?
I agree with
Forward. Yeah.
I agree with what you said, but I want to jump into what David had said earlier, and Seth said as well, which is the level of commitment, I think is what David had talked about, and the empowerment or the acknowledgement of where you're at, right? When you can, in your intention and in your earnest way of being, utter those 4 sentences and know at the very end that it is done, that can be an immediate understanding or recognition of what you're trying to heal. At least that's been my experience.
You know, it's cool. We think about like, let's go back to say,
Thanks for sharing, gentlemen. Sorry to interrupt.
Thank you.
Love you all.
Love you.
Hey, David. Good to see you.
David.
Oh, David. Good to see you. Can you hear me, brothers?
Yes.
Yeah.
Like, it's like, how long does a miracle take? And I think that has to do with the coherency, right? I've been wanting to do a certain caliber of men's group for a long time. And then all of a sudden it happens. But did it happen over the process of me navigating the space, creating something within myself, and trying to show up and be open? Or did it happen that one day that I spoke with Julieta at Akana, and she was like, you know, it'd be nice, you should be introduced to this person. And as soon as we locked eyes, I was like, men's group. It's like, yeah. And then showing up to do it. So it's like allowing yourself to continue to move in that direction and just see what's unfolding and trust. It works the first time, but our awareness around how fast it worked, I think, is something that I work on now. Can I see that something is happening right now? And can I begin to pick up the clues, whether it's through intuition or literally like, that person smiled at me today. It's going to be a good day. And then go with that. And everything else that happens is part of the good day from that smile. So I guess it's our choice.
Yeah.
I think a good way, because there's different ways people feel, right? There's different ways people intuit. And so for the Ho'oponopono, like most of the time when I do the transmutations, it's just an energy. So I'm feeling the energy, I'm feeling what it feels like. Sometimes I'm seeing visuals, and then I'm moving into it with the presence of Creator. And then I witness the change. And it's the letting go, it's the allowing, and it's the witnessing. By the witnessing, that's what does the process. And Ho'oponopono is a good one because it takes the fundamentals and it kind of brings it home, where a lot of times people don't even know where to begin the process. For me, the fundamentals are kind of ingrained in the process that I'm doing. So if a person is doing the Ho'oponopono for an empath, feel in the body, feel in what you're feeling, and notice the shift, and it will kind of turn itself around. For a clairvoyant, they'll be looking and seeing a visual, whatever comes up into their awareness, go through the process and notice what it looks like, and there will be a point where it just feels complete. It looks complete. For a person that doesn't have any of those things, then maybe they're more cognitively minded, right? They go through the process, and there will be a point where you just have no desire to continue. There's no draw to continue. It just feels done. So that's the point when you stop. So how do you know? That is what I would suggest. That's what I would teach other people. I was going to thank David for bringing up the point too about the oneness. And so when I approach everything and I'm feeling like whether it be psychic attack or like a negative spirit showing up, I'm treating everything the same way because I'm treating it like I treat myself. So everything, like Neville Goddard would say, everybody is you pushed out. Everybody is a mirror in some sort of manufactured presence of something existing inside of you. It's not that they say that you and them are the same being exactly, but it is saying that they're manifesting in your reality in the way that you are asking them to be by your vibration. So that's why when you picture somebody different, you perceive somebody in a different way, they'll begin to reflect that difference from your shift in perception in your reality. You can think of them in an image that you hold to be and align to be true. They will start to reflect that image in your reality by the way they act to you, by the actions they take. And it's nothing else that you have to do other than see them differently. And that's the power of conscious creation within inside of us. So when I am dealing with anything that comes up into my awareness, whether it be planetary stuff or I have had demonic spirits, I treat them the same way I do the darkness that I've treated inside of myself, the shadows and I've treated inside of myself.
Yes.
And the idea is that I want for me what God wants for me, and I want for you what God wants for you.
Mm.
And as I tune into that awareness that everything comes back to the same source, everything expands from the same source, I treat whatever that is in the same way that the God consciousness moves through me would want me to. And that is to treat it with light and love. And that is what does the transmutation. And that is also why I do not battle the dark. I do not battle the dark. I invite the dark into the light through my conscious awareness. And that's why that's also part of the reason I wanted to talk about the shift right now that's going on. And some people are having that frantic awareness. They're like, oh, we need to do this thing. And I think there's a point where you need to both do your ceremony in sacredness and celebration and simultaneously let go and let God in that awareness that you're spreading your light around. That's what will do the shifting, not the battling, because you're engaging in the frequency of the battle itself. When you let go of that, there's an ease. And in that ease, there's a knowing. Because when you let go and let God in that way, you know that everything is going to manifest and be okay. Because you've let go of the reins, you've let go of the process. And it works on the macro level just as much as it does on the micro level. So we're doing our own personal manifestations. If you see the outcome that you're going for, and you try so hard to hold on to the reins and you're saying, I need to control every part of the process, you're going to push yourself left and right all over the place. But when you put the marker down and say, this is what I'm going for, and you kind of let go and then you just move towards the goal as you're guided to, you'll end up right where you need to be. And this is how you can play with both the manifestation on the small level, on the personal level, where you're like, this is how I want my life to look like, and on the macro, this is how I want the world to look like. So you start to imagine and dream a new world into place. Be the dreamer and the dream. Dream the world into place and let go, and then know that we're being called there, no matter what it looks like in the middle.
I love that.
Oh,
Oh.
You know what? I just want, if I could, for a lot of people, it's like the spiritual community gets into light and love. Brandon, we had that conversation about dealing with entities. And it just came to me, you know, another word, if you wanted to synthesize light and love, is granting all things that come across your path the dignity that comes with the fact that they exist. So when I dealt with that entity, I didn't want to destroy it. Typically it's, oh, kill the entity, blah, 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 remove it. But now I was like, you know what? I just knew inside that this was something created by Source as well. And so I wanted to navigate something healthy for both of us, which was you not feeding off of me, maybe coming into the understanding that you can be your own source of connection and connecting you with Source. So light and love may sound a certain way to people. Maybe most of the people that are watching get it, but also think of light and love also as like dignity. Then asking, what does dignity mean? You know, dignity versus respect. Respect is typically earned, though you could, if you want to, accord respect, but it's an earned thing. But dignity is intrinsic to existence. Something that's imbued and created by Source is automatically, you know, granted dignity. And when you give dignity to things that exist, that also creates a space for you to navigate in grace, because you're already like honoring the value that it is just by being. And I think, that is maybe a word that people can keep in mind, dignity, to navigate with anything that's coming on, because the situation can be granted dignity. Then you navigate the situation. I just wanted to share that.
It's important to know, like, when you're navigating those spaces, when I say, I want for you what God wants for you, it's important to know that you're not coming from a place of assumptions. You're not coming from a place of, I think I know what's best for you. You're not coming from a place of what's best for you is what's best for you and what's best for me, what's best for everybody. You're coming into a place where you're really tuning in to whatever situation that you're dealing with and saying, what wants to be shown here? What wants to be done here? What wants to be shifted here? What would God want for you in this moment? And then you open that idea, that concept, and you let it to flow through you, not necessarily come from that place of cognition.
I love that.
It's, what, Brandon, I think for people listening, like people get a lot of the things we're saying, right? Like they understand it, or they understand it to a degree, but where a lot of people seem to be coming to as a result of these seemingly cataclysmic changes that are happening in the world is we're being called to change, right? And change doesn't look the same for everybody. Everybody has their own take, their own perspective on it. But ultimately, we know that the way things wasn't working. We as a species weren't in coherence, or we weren't living a sustainable lifestyle in conjunction with the natural world around us. And so it doesn't matter who wins for president or who the elected leader of any country is, until a more unified, perceptive awareness starts to emerge from us as individuals and from the people as a whole, then this leaves us in this limbo place. And I think a lot of people feel like, okay, we're in the midst of change. We're in the midst of limbo. I don't know what I want. How do I know what I want? So it's almost like I'm posing a question for those who are like, they're stuck. They're perceiving this world. They're feeling the contractions and expansions. They don't know what it is. They don't know what part of themselves is actually feeling it. But how do people navigate the unknown and the uncertainty that surely is going to be coming right until this new golden world is birthed? Because I feel like that's the kind of stuff, that's the medicine that people really need to own from a personal perspective to get through, to get to the other side. So I want to ask that to you guys and hear what you would come up with.
Beautiful question. Very, very, very relevant, of course. I know for me, it's like asking the question, what am I holding on to? And what can I release? Like recognizing when things aren't working, right? And like, okay. And then I think for me, I went through this long process of introspection where I'm just kind of breaking down parts of myself. And I wouldn't necessarily say that's what's needed for everybody, of course, but to begin to ask the questions like, if you just begin with that statement, I want for me what God wants for me, and I want for you what God wants for you, knowing that the infinite intelligence has all the answers that are available, and begin to open up and say, okay, what is it that you would want for me that would be different than I'm doing now? And that's really what got me to shift the most, is that particular contemplation.
I love this, brother. Thank you.
Yeah.
What about this question too, right? So we've got, what am I holding on to? What can I release? But then the question that I've been asking myself on top of that is, am I willing to release what needs to be released? And also, how do I go about doing that? And so sometimes I need to ask for help, sharing that I'm holding on to this thing and I'm not sure how I want to let it go in some instances, and then asking for help. And so I will just speak to as men, so often it's hard for us to ask for help. And we've been separated from each other, but what I'm noticing is as we come together, there's so much shared wisdom. Asking the question sometimes gives you the answer before you literally ask a person. But being willing to ask the people in your environment and then sit with all of the bounty of options that you get in response. Take a chance. Are you willing to release that thing? If not, why not? Can somebody help me to release this? And here we are in ceremony once again.
Beautiful. Here, I got one. I got another one to throw in the mix here. And how do people, because this whole concept of finding God within, right? It's vague and it means different things. But what is a tangible way for individuals to find and know God within themselves? Because we, on a subconscious level, I think everybody's starting to realize, like, the theme tonight has been taking responsibility for how you perceive reality, learning to trust your ability to take that perception and create a vision of a future that is going to be healthy and whole for you and everyone else. But the real key missing ingredient here is, how do you connect to that power of manifestation, that God within? And how do you take that abstract notion that is to most people and make it much more tangible for where, people are at? Because we perceive things in a linear, often mental-based kind of way. But this whole idea of finding God within isn't an idea. It's an experiential reality that can happen instantly. And a lot more people want that to happen, but they're still like coming up against the walls, the barriers of like, what does that mean? How do you do it? So I would love to hear you guys talk about that.
I see a lot of people having different spiritual journeys, right? For a lot of people, it's a journey. The journey to find God within. For me, it was definitely a journey, but there's been markers and things. And so I'm looking at and deconstructing my own experience and looking at these markers that's really helped expand that awareness. And those are the things I would like to help others realize too within themselves. But some people I've seen find God within themselves through the realization of their constantly manifesting all the time, right? So they go through this manifestation process and mastering that and realizing everything that they think is manifesting in some form in their reality. And they start to think, what does that mean about myself? And so they start to recognize the creator within themselves and externalized. For other people I've seen, they start to master astral travel, right? And then so they go to astral travel and experience these other dimensions. They get taught and they meet these other teachers and all kinds of weird little journeys they may go on there. And that teaches them about God within themselves. For other people, they go into these meditative experiences where they start to drain their consciousness of their blocks and limitations, and they start to expand it into awareness and open that awareness. And that's what gets them to find God within themselves. And I think you could really use just about any tool that you're drawn to. And the main thing, though, I think is the most important, is setting the intention to do so. And know that it can be shown. Know that it can be done. And the knowing and the releasing of that intention is the reason why so many people, they go through life kind of on this like automation, and they get to a certain point where they have a crisis. And in this crisis, they release themselves to if there's a God, and they give up everything. Inside, they give up everything. They just let it go. And boom, that's when it manifests. And those are the principles of manifestation. Anything that you're energetically holding and you're trying to get to, you're going to prevent it from coming into your awareness. But once you let it go, boom, it's there, right? And sometimes the markers are different places where it shows up. But move into the intention. Go through the manifestation principles that's been proven. If you need to prove that for yourself first, perfect, do that. But go through the manifestation principles where you're holding into your awareness and your attention and setting the guidepost. Show me the truth about who I am in relation to Creator. Show me the truth about Creator inside of myself. Show me what I need to know about reality and creation in general, so that I can truly know God in the way that God wants me to know God. And so you set that as your guidepost, and you see and start to begin to imagine the feeling of what that might feel like. You can even set it in a more mundane level, or like Neville Goddard does. You begin with the end in mind. Imagine yourself having a conversation with somebody. I did this process, like you're just beyond the telephone. I did this process, and wow, was it magnificent. I didn't know what to expect. I just did this and I let it go. I had these contemplations, and then boom, there it was. And then you let this thought go, but you make it as real as you can possibly get it. So if you can't have any awareness of what that might feel like on the outside, that's understandable, because where are you relating to? You don't have nothing to compare it to. Like, how am I supposed to feel there? So set something else up to where you can have a marker and hold that as your placeholder, and then watch how one day you're sitting there in exactly the place you're imagining, doing the exact same thing that you're imagining, talking to somebody and having this conversation, saying, you know what, it's amazing. I did this process and it showed me this, and here I am. But make it as real and as detailed as possible to set that marker there. And then you'll be surprised at what you find in the middle. And that's the part you leave open.
Let's welcome a new brother into the round table. Brendan, you want to make the introduction?
How you doing?
Hey, brother. I'm well. How are you?
Great. So this is Richard, everybody. He goes by different names. How do you want to be referred to?
This work, Akana, is this work. Yeah.
Okay. Akana.
A-K-A-N-A.
All right.
Pleasure to have you here, brother.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor.
Seth, I was thinking about that question. How do you know the God source? It was really difficult for me to put it into words. It's more of a aesthetic feeling for me personally. Well, the coherence is part of it, but I think if I were to distill it to its truest form, and I'm still learning in that, and that is, I dissolve. Everything else dissolves. My communion with God is all the boundaries dissolve, and I become love. I become a beacon of light in that way. I feel the brilliance in the connection with Godhead. That's the only way I can describe it. I can't even, the words don't even do it justice, though, if that makes sense.
No, I think a lot, because I speak to so many people and they understand it's a possibility, but they keep stumbling upon what does that mean? And they ascribe all of this meaning that's mostly through language, through the way we're most used to processing information in the past. And it's that very mechanism of almost forced perception, right? Or conditioned perception that prevents us from realizing what already is, you know? And so I always try to simplify it for people. I'm like, okay, you're looking for it, you don't know what it is, or you forgot what it is. To me, it's really simple in that there's something happening in my body there's an intelligence. It's causing energy to move through my body faster than the speed of light often. And whatever that is, it's way more intelligent than I am. So I choose to take my little bit of intelligence and keep becoming aware of this intelligence that's in me. And then suddenly, just as the universe is in a state of expansion, you feel that state of expansion. And then suddenly you're not locked into this whole way of trying to perceive things the way you've always tried to perceive them. So that's why, and I wanted each of you guys to chime in on this, because it's a huge thing, and people keep, in my world anyway, like I hear people, they keep coming up against, like, how do you tap into it? Like, I know it's real, but how real is it? How accessible is it? You know, and as you guys know, and as many are finding out, it's more real than any of this stuff that we think is real, but we're kind of on the opposite end, looking in on something, not realizing how complete and whole we actually are. And that's kind of the journey, is like coming from this point of perceived separation, seeing beyond the things that we mostly keep projecting into our reality, until that dissolves. And then all of a sudden you're feeling this God within, you're perceiving it, you're aware of it, it's influencing your human self, your human intelligence. So I just love it, because each different perspective speaks to somebody else who's coming to terms with it. And so many are coming to, or attempting to come to terms with this now more than ever, it seems like.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Thankfully.
And, you know, back to kind of what we were saying, and I know many of you guys feel the same way, it's the individuals who are choosing to take responsibility for this part of themselves, and then all of us coming together and being like, you know what, these are differences. We're not focused on that. The world's teaching us to focus on our differences. We realize that there's something within us that is greater than all the differences in the world, and that it actually speaks much more clearly and loudly to the similarities we all share. And so we're choosing to not buy into all that narrative. We're going to invest our attention more thoroughly into the similarities that are within us and that we're all sharing. And we're going to agree, or find a point of agreement, to create a world that is sustainable, that is harmonious to what these similarities are that most of us feel to be true. So,
Absolutely.
and Akana, sorry, is that your name? Okay, I just want to make sure. The question before you came on, I just asked a question. I was like, how do people find God within? I just threw it out there because it seems to be a predominant theme lately. Just so you know, because you're probably like, what? You coming in, what are we talking about?
How do you find God within what?
How do you find God within yourself? Because the themes we've been talking about all night is this idea of taking responsibility for how we perceive the world around us, choosing to trust the vision that we're seeing and our ability to manifest and create a better reality for ourselves and the world from that place. And it seems like the ingredient that's missing for most when they consider if that's a possibility or not is finding God or this creative element within themselves and allowing it to empower their vision of the world. So that's why I asked the question.
Great question.
Did we lose Ez?
I think he's still around. There he is.
All right.
Well, I'm happy to chime in. I'm not sure of the process.
Oh, just if you have something to contribute, just go ahead and chime in.
Sure. Yeah, that's easy. Thank you for such a great question. Yeah, it's such a great time for that question for me. I'm currently at a yoga retreat down in Costa Rica, and it's been a really fascinating process as I've been working. I work as a channel, essentially, and it's been fascinating to have a process over several years to let something get inside of my body and move me and speak through me and teach me. This is my school now. They've taught me 7 different bodywork modalities, and a lot of which I've never even heard of or seen before, and so among other things. And it's just a really fascinating process. So when I got to this retreat, it was so interesting to be instructed about yoga. And now I went through a really deep detox. I did a 28-day fast, and my whole vibration just completely shifted. I just did another short one, and it's beyond words. It's the most intense and dramatic shift I might have ever had. And since I've been out of it, what I keep experiencing and seeing is we're going from the era of the intellect, of intelligence, into the era of the heart. And it's all about allowance is the foundation of everything. And as the yoga retreat's been happening, it's like Abraham Hicks. It's a stream of consciousness that comes through me, and it's translating everything that they're saying, all the text, all the words. I don't know anything about yoga, very little anyway. And they're like rewriting the book, and I'm just watching this process to unravel just a different construct. Nothing good or bad or worse or better. They're just like, this is a different paradigm, and it's just falling out of me. And they've done that a lot with sexual work as well, like intimacy and sexuality in the most profound, extraordinary ways. And within the yoga work, what they called on me to do, what they're asking me to do was, I ended up not doing anything. At first, for like, they were like, no, you're not doing the structure, or you're not going to this class, or you're going to be late, and here's why. And I was just trusting the whole process. It's been bizarre and the most liberating fucking thing ever. And seeing how these were constructs of the mind. And as I'm looking at the book, this is yoga of the mind, and they're saying this is an old paradigm based on an ancient paradigm, an ancient construct that has lasted that's why they're always found. That's why because they last the test of time, the resonance of it constantly being rewritten within a construct of time, linear time in particular. And not to say anything's right or wrong, it's just this construct that they're showing me when you're talking about God is they were saying this is what yoga in this construct is yoga is what it works with and what it manifests is time and the elements, and consequently space, but time. And it's not what people think, because each pose, yoga is a story, just like your life is a story. Just like everything we encounter, we love these stories, and it pulls us, our hearts, and we create from these spaces, these stories. And they were saying yoga is a story, and within each person they have a very unique story that wants to come out. And so the poses that they're being put on are based on constructs, typically of trying to get rid of something, like reduce stress, or and they're like, no vibration wants that. But you can do that, and it just creates more energy around it. So because pleasure and pain on the same vibration, one has resistance, the other one and holding, and the other one has flow in this construct. And so what they said, well, just lay down. So instead of doing yoga, I just lay down in savasana, the laying down position, the last position. They said yoga is actually, in the current construct, reversed. So when I laid down for 2 hours, and then they're navigating my breath for me. And they said, you have to, in order to do this, it's very exciting here. In order to do this, it's so essential you put yourself in a receptive mode. And how you eat, how you breathe, how you walk, and consequently how you talk is how you live. And so allowing breath. And this is something I've been teaching for a long time, though I have realized I haven't really embodied it. So I just laid the fuck down. And I was like, basically the whole 24 days, I'm like, whatever you tell me to do, I'll do it. And so I'm here. And I've had the most fucking amazing transformations, but I just sat there and I was just breathing. I wasn't breathing. My body, the energy was moving me. So air, life was moving me. And as I started to allow it to move me, it started to wake me up in the sense of, and it started to show me. And then it showed me, it said, yoga begins with an idea. Like Savasana is where everything begins, is that stillness. And after that, your body will show you, your yoga will show you, because it will infect you like an ancient wine, and then start to move you if you're patient enough and just allow. You don't have to do anything. And all those other words are saying, like, let go. All those things they're trying, they're doing, is it just allow. And when there was an allowance, and this also resonated within the sexual work as well, like when there's allowance of the energy, allowance of self, allowance of discovery, I started to discover the most extraordinary thing inside of me. And it said, you have a story inside of you. And each position, which is based on a sacred geometrical structure, and then they're getting into dimensions and how it works with Merkabahs and it was like, oh my God, it's amazing. It makes so much sense. But at the same time, it's like, they even redefined and show me why people do this. I'm like, and then I was like, oh my God, it makes so much sense. And they're redefining the points for the hand. They're like what they are versus what they've been told. And when you look at them now, it's like, oh, that's the mental construct. And they're like, this is the heart construct. And this is the hand and the phallus and the feet. And they're all extensions of the heart when we allow it to be, instead of reaching or trying. And there's so much language and so much vibration around creating, trying, reaching, doing. And that you can do that. The thing is, they were saying, is if you're not receiving, then you're starting from doing this. And when we're born, first thing we do is we receive life. And as we're trying to prove our worthiness and not prove, like play in this paradigm, really, we keep trying to give in order to feel worthy to receive. And they say when you turn on your receptive generator, then you start to see like God. You start to see you because it's inside of you. And then they're showing me the chakras, like each chakra is a universe. And in another paradigm, they're all connected as one, like as everything is one. But like when I started allowing the chakra to show me, instead of saying, oh, it's my perineum, it's my sacral, I just knew the general energy of it, allowed the breath to be there. And then suddenly I'm seeing planets and worlds and things. I'm just like, this is a universe. Like each one is a universe, depending on the construct that we're playing in. So I realized, so I didn't take any more classes. I've been for 24 days almost at a 200-hour retreat, and it's kind of driving them nuts. But it's also funny because to see the beautiful conflict going on as it makes sense, and they're almost just like, stop saying stuff, but at the same time, wait, what do you mean? And I'm like, I don't know what I'm talking about, but here's what I'll share. And then they're like, okay, that's enough. Because we need to stick to our structure. I was like, okay, you do whatever you want. I don't care. I'm going to write this shit down. And as I'm reading these texts, like these ancient yoga texts, they're based on stories. So when we allow ourselves, in my experience, to receive, that's the first part. And one little piece on top of that, they put me in child's pose for like 45 minutes with my legs out, and it was very uncomfortable, but I don't surrender. They said allow. Surrender is like it's more like I give up. It's like just allow it and be in it. And as I was doing that, I got in so much pain, and I was just feeling, because it was compressed energy, which are stories, which are inside my body from past lives. That's what I do predominantly, is I locate stories in people's bodies, and I can shift them like in moments, and it dramatically shifts their DNA. It shifts their emotional construct with life in general. And I get to see it. Like I get to see the ghosts, what happened. And they just talk about it, and they'll say the date, that's some of the time. And I'm just like, this is amazing. Like that story's inside of you. And it wants to be heard because it was so fucking beautiful and intense to be honored. And that's a part of God too, but it's a part of the heart that never got to be heard. That is the expression of love, the expression of God, when we allow it. And that's where it felt so powerful around what you're saying, like seeing and feeling and embodying, like allowing God to move through us, because it's not to look for, it's already there. It's just, can we get the hell out of the way so we can allow ourselves to embody and just experience it as it shows us what it is. And it's different for everybody because everyone has a different story. And when I was in child's pose, they were showing me all the movements are cyclical in origin. They're figure eights, or they're movements like this, or they're vibratory, but vibratory like in a fast circle. And I'm like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like it's always a constant state of movement with energy. And that's what breath is too. It's that allowance. Like we talk about the, what's it called? The circuit, you know, people use with breathing, with sexual energy. I'm blanking. Thank you. Microcosmic orbit. Yeah, it's a cycle. It's a constant movement of energy. You know, just like when something resonates with someone, it holds the energy because it resonates, and it's a truth. And so when I was in child's pose, it was so hard to get up. It took me several minutes to move, but I realized, and as I was doing it, because I learned from doing, I learned from them showing me through the experience of it, embodying me fully, and me just surrendering to the experience of speaking and letting they just take over my body. So I started. And then I put my hand forwards, and then as I started moving forwards, I realized I was crawling. And I was like, oh, and I could barely move. And then they told me, this is a long time ago, they said, we love it when you're in child's pose because it's the only time that you let us hold you. And I was like, oh my God. So in terms of the embodiment of God, it's already there. There's nothing to look for in this experience of my work. Is it's just the allowance of don't even think you know what it is. Instead, let it discover you as you discover it, and let it show you the most magical version of itself that you can handle without being blown out of the water, thinking like, oh God, my world's upside down. And so you get to embody that space and be magically inspired, because the finger points, the new ones they showed me, inspiration, the embodiment of the heart, love, co-creation, and creation. And then you create it, and then you share it, and then you do it again. So that inspiration comes from the embodiment of that energy as it moves through your body. Like I'm feeling the vibration right now. It's so beautiful. So yeah, that's been my latest discovery, and implementing that into sexual energy, which they could talk about forever. That's such an incredible space to play in, you know, because everything's play, in order to shift and expand into limitless creation and possibility. It's rocking my world right now, and I'm still in the middle of it. So
Love that.
Yeah.
Brother, can I ask you again to just go through those the five fingers of life that you just shared?
Yeah, certainly. So I think the original one was ego, but they're like, or desire, but they're like, no, that's inspiration. It's inspiration. And then the embodiment of the heart, this is why we put the ring on there. So this is the physical embodiment of heart. And because your body is a part of it, you're in a vessel. And your heart energy is love. So when we're inspired, and then we're inspired to do, to allow, to create, to allow, then we feel it with the senses, and it starts in the body, and then that's love. It starts to generate this love as you can, build it up, because everything's love ultimately. And then, like this is, they say in the current paradigm, this is, what do they say? I should just let them come through. Conformity. You do this. But in the new paradigm, which is an ancient paradigm, they say co-creation. I'm going to share this now. Let's see what we do together. And then after that is, because we have a thumb, creation. And then you have something in your hand. And then you share it. Because we're designed to feel, play, create, and share. Feel, play, create, and share.
Thank you for your beautiful share.
Thank you, brother. That was magnificent. Oh,
you're welcome. Thanks for the question.
Deep wisdom.
And thank you for inviting that out.
Yeah. It's nice
No,
to share. I haven't really done this much, so it's great. I appreciate it, the opportunity.
We're all speechless, yet at the same time, we all probably just felt this inspiration together, and we're all like, oh my God, let's take this, because it already is, and just bring it to a greater expression, because it's happening anyway. We're either allowing it or we're resisting it, and all of us here are done with resisting it. So let's allow it and let it become something that is incomprehensible to our normal self. That's how I'm feeling.
I appreciate that. Thank you, Seth.
Yeah, and it's a way of allowing other men and women to see that experience and trust that experience as well. Because when you live, this paradigm is so fixated, it's anchored us in such cement-like stature that to allow something that is so nuanced, it's so foreign, right? And it's through that allowance and seeing other people allowing it and seeing the magic go through them and seeing the discovery and the play, as you said, and kind of the beautiful wisdom. It deeply resonates with me as well.
Thank you. I don't know shit. They just this is all just given to me. So, but I really appreciate that. It's yeah. Thank you. Oh, what is your name? Zissis?
Yeah.
Zissis?
Zissis.
Zissis. Pleasure to meet you.
Some of the most profound spiritual experiences in my life have been sometimes when I'm not expecting it, and then sometimes when I just open and allow that to flow through me. And it's that opening and allow, and it's the allowing of infinite possibilities, the opening to the recognition that the infinite intelligence, there is so much there that's available, and anything can happen, anything and everything can happen, and it's just a matter of how much you want to and are able to allow in your experience. And when I realized the infinitesimal nature of things, like that's when I had like bilocation experiences, and that's when I was able to see through my eyelids into another dimension, another reality right in front of me. So all these like mystical experiences happened just because I simply was open to it and I allowed it to flow through me. Not that I had any kind of conscious awareness of like, okay, how do I do this thing? I'm going to make this thing happen right now, and it's going to be really, no, I was in the moment, and it flowed through. Sometimes a thought sparked it. You know, like there's a time where I was just kind of moving around in my bedroom, and it was pitch black, and I'm like, I wish I could see it, and like I'd like to see right now. And then all of a sudden, like everything started having this red tint, and I could see in the dark. It was cool. I didn't try to do that. I just opened to it, and it happened through me. So profound things happen when you just open up to the experience of the infinite.
Mm-hmm.
You think, though, that's also a capacity of what you're carrying as well? Because I think we all have the capacity, but to Seth's point earlier, it's the integration, the remembrance, the allowance, and then the capacity opens up even more. It's just like getting more or being embodied in more bandwidth, as it were. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think it's, there's no one right answer. Like there's no absolutes in creation, right? There's very few absolutes, I should say. So it's not the same thing for everybody. Sometimes people kind of stumble into these experiences. Sometimes people, they do move towards them with an awareness that I would like to manifest this thing. And there also is like the history of the soul, right? There's a soul as experiences in many, many, many lifetimes where they've developed these gifts, and we come into this body in a forgetting. We come in and we forget everything. And that's part of the process for our spiritual journey in this reality, is going through the remembering. so we remember who we are. But not all souls have taken that journey, right? Some souls are newer souls coming into being, and they're fresh in their awarenesses, and so they don't have as much experience on that energetic level of outside possibilities. So they're more confined to the space in which they were seated in. And it's not necessarily that they're actually confined, it's only confined by their own awareness of what's possible. But even then, like, you take a group of psychic children, like highly psychic children, you take a normal child and put them with them, that child will also develop psychic abilities, just like the other psychic children. So it's the vicinity, it's what you're told is possible, it's what you accept to be possible. I remember reading a story about somebody who, he was a young kid, and he went into this temple, and he would look at these pictures of this lotus pose and floating. He's like, oh, they're floating, they're levitating. And he thought, this is what you do. This is what you do when you do this. And it was experienced in meditating. Like, he went in there, and like they started to teach him, and he started to meditate in this group for the first time. And when he opened his eyes, everybody was staring at him in awe, because he was actually levitating off the floor, and they were looking at him. And then we realized how shocked they were. He dropped to the ground, because then he accepted the fact that I shouldn't be doing this. So it shocked him out of that, and he couldn't do it since, he said. But this assumption that this is the way things work was what prompted this experience.
That's it.
No, I was just gonna say the perfection of imperfection, or the imperfection of perfection. Like, everything goes at this point, and it is this new paradigm is just coming in, where it's like, we already are it. We're already there. We just gotta let go of the parts of us that doubt it, and then boom, like a light bulb, we're just turned on and functioning, and we seem to automatically already know what to do with it when we're in that space. But
that's interesting. I'm still learning how to like incorporate this into groups. So yeah, I'm really open to guidance on this.
I want to ask you before you start. My apologies. I want to ask you. You said that you are a channel or facilitating through a different consciousness, as it will. Maybe. Do you know what that is? In
this dimension, it's called Andromedus. It's so Andromedan and apparently Arcturian, which I never heard of it. So I went on the whole. Apparently, that's, as you probably all know, a real thing. But they say, of course, we're all one and it's all connected. And like, in truth, everything is your higher self. But in this construct, because of the separation, we get to play in that way. And so now you get to understand what you're playing with, and also the beautiful story, the love story that's incorporated as a consequence of what I'm embodying as I'm discovering myself within this context, whether it's an archetype or whether it's a person or a human, like all these different, that's what I see now, is I see multiple dimensions at the same time, which took me a long time. I'm still integrating, and it's great. But seeing, like, I see archetypes, I see the devil, I see the story, I see the past lives, it's just like, I see the oneness, and I'm like, I see like, everything behind you and around you, and the shapes and the colors and how they are integrating and fit. And I'm just like, oh my God. So, it's an adaptive process, but I think this is all where we're going anyway, to where we allow it, and then it becomes an experience, and then we just move from it, So, but yeah, long answer to your question. Andromedan. Yeah, they're wonderful. Their jokes are pretty bad, but yeah, they're wonderful.
They're also like the scientists of the universe, are they not? Or
Yeah, I heard like the Christ consciousness vibration and scientists. They've apparently eliminated all disease, and they have all this technology. And I just also happen to work with alternative high-end technology.
There you go.
Yeah, right. It's like, no surprise. The thing they talk about with that is letting go is an action of trying to do something, and it still is a construct of separation. And which is really interesting to me. I was just like, oh, I need to let go. You're like, no, you don't. You just need to allow what's there, because if you're trying to open up, if you're trying to see more, if you're like, oh, expand yourself, believe more, like, you can do that. It might be a lot harder though, because it's a mental construct trying to go back at the heart. And that mental construct was created from the heart because nothing supersedes the heart anyway. So actually, the target's even wrong. It's reversed. Not wrong, but it's reversed. It's like you're looking here, but that's what the mental construct does. It's looking at the opposite thing, like the yoga pose that's at the end was originally at the beginning. So which is beautiful. It's like, oh my gosh, what an amazing world to live in where we did that. Like, whoa, holy shit, what a creation. And they're like, yeah, everything's amazing and fucking divine and equal. And so when they talk about that, they talk about just go back to being curious, because it's like that kid be like, I want to read that book, and it has dragons in it. And it's not, and they say it's not about expanding and opening your eye to dragons. It's like, what are you really excited about? Let that vibration come in and let that expand as you allow your imagination, as you allow yourself to be discovering you as an idea and as a story, and then living it fully, because you can feel it, you can see it, and you don't have to go after it, any of it. Like, it's all there, vibrationally in your what you call vortex, in your energy field. For each individual, as they each have a specific character and role that they've embodied for this lifetime to expand into and fully play in. And it can go fucking anywhere, and that's the exciting part, because once we get on that train of excitement, then we want to read this book and this book and this book, and then we expand our belief system, just as you all are speaking about. And then it doesn't become something we're trying to do or let go or move into or release or, all that. That's still a mental construct. And it's a mental attempt, a tension focused mental construct that's trying to control something or let go of something, and it's in a sense rejecting something, because that thing that they have, it's like when I have a client who has cancer, that cancer is trying to talk to them. It has a story. It's trying to help them live, not die. Though if they can't hear it, then they're going to just die fighting. So that's where my job comes in. Is it's like, here's why it's here. Here's what it wants to tell you. So in that construct, yes, and their encouragement would be just fucking stop, just stop, because everything has been so reversed. And when they explain it in the opposite way, just as divine, it just blows my fucking mind, So.
And it's simple. Oh,
Lost him.
Was,
That's the energy. It just comes and goes just like that.
But I think there's such an elegance and simplicity with what Akana was talking about, right? Like when we distill everything, it's the simplicity in that, the reverse in that we, and I was going to say that earlier, Seth, as you were talking about, it's the construct of the mental mind. We need to drop back into the heart. The heart has all the answers. The heart has everything it needs right here. And most people don't understand what that is, or how to get to that point, or what feels like it. And it could be as simple, quite frankly, as just drop into the chest area of your heart. Be aware of your heart as it's beating. And as you're aware of this presence that's in your chest area, allow your breath to go in and out through your heart, just within that feeling. And right there, you've dropped into that. The more that you can maintain, you then create this coherence where everything starts to become aligned. Now, we can go in a lot deeper and create other imageries and whatnot, but for people to start, that's a great place to start.
I think a lot of people, it trips them up is they confuse the emotions with the heart. And then what you described is really the stillness of the heart. It's the stillness of the heart that has the answers, but they confuse the two. And emotional attachments and sometimes it's the excitement or attachment to an idea, and it's not necessarily even coming to the right from the right place. And there is an energetic difference when it's authentically coming from your center. And it can still feel very exciting, but emotions can definitely sway a person if they're paying attention to that as the indicator of what is the heart trying to say, when it really requires going deeper into it. Like some people will say, well, the heart is speaking to me and it's saying I shouldn't do this, but really it's the fear, and the heart's contracting because of the fear. So you go into the fear, and then you be there with the stillness of the heart and say, help me unravel this fear. Look at this fear with me. What is there to see?
And have the courage to listen to that.
Oh, absolutely. That's important.
Look at how simple, right? Like, essentially, there's an addiction to overanalyze all these things that everybody has normalized without even realizing it. And we're just like, all right, you know what? Kicking the habit. Gone. We're going to just be what we already are, which is what we talk about constantly, this intelligence that's in us. It's breathing us. We're just like choosing to breathe with it. But when we allow and get out of the way, it's already doing it all. We're just getting in alignment with it. But through this coherence, through these different practices, through these things, it just becomes easier. And then we're like, oh yeah, we already know this. We are this. We're doing it. So.
And I think within the energies that are online now is the speed of thought, which is created, the speed of thought which you can create. That's going to be what's challenging with people. Because I think we started off, I think Seth, you were talking about the embodiment, right? Well, we all have to make a decision. Do we want to embody negativity, positivity, or something in the middle, which is neutral, right? And what you embody is what your direct representation is going to be on this planet. So if you want to embody positivity and really be consistent in that frame of mind, I think that's what your experience, I know that's what your experience is going to be, right? When you embody the neutrality, you're going to have a mix of emotions of the bad and the good. At least that's been my experience in the last little while, I'll tell you that. So, for me, it's this uncertainty, right? How can you be positive all the time? So I have to go through the experience of neutrality to understand the positivity. I already know negativity.
And on that note, brothers, I have to get to a family dinner. So another amazing roundtable as always. I love you guys.
I love you guys. It's good to see you, all of you.
Love you, brothers. Thank you. It's good to reconnect.
Akana said his computer died, so that's why he had to bounce. Interesting timing, though. He just got finished and whoop.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we're all
Time.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys. I love you. It's great to see you and reconnect again. And you guys are doing a great job. Just keep going, all of us.
Yes.
Wonderful to have you again. Wonderful to see you again. Thank you, brother.
Absolutely.
Brothers, I got one word, 2 syllables. Tulu. Come on down.
Yes.
Set up is right for you.
I'm already there.
It's prime for you. When you guys are ready. When you're ready, let me know. Got the space locked in?
That actually is one of my
Half the battle.
my flagpoles. Like that in my mind, like that's one of my flagpoles. Is like I'm picturing myself in that room.
Yes.
So just FYI, that's
picturing
a
you there, bro. Yes. I know. Yeah.
As I'm going to be there, guaranteed, soon.
All right. Come on. I'm getting into some interesting training that I'm super excited to share with you guys. So I'm going to go in deep tomorrow, and then I'll start towards the end of the month. And we're going to be able to do something very beautiful and powerful here. Just look where we're at now, but I know all of us are gearing up. So putting that in the field. I'm putting that in the field. 5 fingers of life, like our brother Akana just said. My man.
Love you.
All right.
Love you, brothers.
Yeah,
Aloha.
Aloha, guys.
Thank you for this.